Hey, what's up YouTube? Damien here. In today's video, I'm really going to focus on the beginner who's absolutely brand new to recording and has heard about the program called Ableton Live. So today's whole idea is like maybe you decided to buy a Toolmaster Pro and you really want to understand a little bit more about music production, but you have no idea really where to get started. This video is for you. Alright, so when we're looking at Ableton, Ableton is the software we're going to use. It's called a digital audio workstation. It is basically the equivalent of a canvas to a painter, but this is our canvas for recording music. So whenever you come to the Ableton Live website, you're going to notice that there are three different versions: intro, standard, and then the complete suite. If you are just getting started, I really recommend most people start off with the intro, because the cool thing is you can always upgrade your license as you go. You know, really the biggest drawback in my opinion to the intro versus the standard is the amount of tracks that you have. You can have, you know, you're only limited to about 16 tracks, but you still get about 5 gigs of sound, and you can kind of, you know, scroll through here and see all the key differences. If you were a student, either at the high school level or in the college level, you can get access to student financing. So I believe I bought the suite for the cost of standard. So I do think that if you're trying to do this full time, and maybe you've worked in another studio and you want to have something that just gives you the most amount of flexibility and you have the budget, Suite is a great option. The reason why I recommend Ableton instead of, say, Logic Pro, if you already have a MacBook, go ahead and get Logic Pro. But Ableton, in my opinion, what I really enjoy about it over Logic Pro is how lightweight it is. Because from the get-go, this is designed for live use as well as compositional use. So at the end of the day, you know, whatever DAW you go with, it doesn't really matter. I'm planning on doing a series where I do the same thing that you're seeing on this for Logic Pro. So don't think there's a quote-unquote best. You just got to find what works best for your workflow. And I find with my clients, Ableton is a great piece of software to get started because you can use it for your own composition, and then it's lightweight and reliable enough that you can take it out on the road with your laptop, and you can do everything from controlling loops to DJing to playing to your own backing tracks and controlling lights and patch changes and everything else. It's super flexible and modular, and that's why I really recommend Ableton. So with that out the way, let's jump into the next part of an overview. Okay, I am on Mac OS. If you're a creative and you're getting into the world of music production, I really recommend you invest in a MacBook Pro or some type of Mac that has at least 16 gigs of RAM and at least an M1 chip. If you are on Windows and you have a custom PC or a strong PC, everything I'm going to show you is still going to apply. It's just instead of using Command, you're going to use Control. But don't quote me on that because I only game on PC. I don't ever use it for my work. So when we open up Ableton, this is the default screen. This is considered a Ranger view. What I want you to do is hit Tab. And now this is going to take you into a more traditional DAW view. So if you've ever worked with any of the other DAWs out there, this is probably what you're used to. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to explain the different types of tracks inside of Ableton. So all I did to get to that screen you just saw is I right-clicked over to the right, and you see that we have an audio track, a MIDI track, and a return track. An audio track is basically any type of audio that you are either going to get from a modeler or a microphone. You guys know I'm a big proponent of the Toolmaster Pro, so if I wanted to connect my Toolmaster Pro, I would use an audio track. MIDI track, it is so much more than just a classic keyboard, which is what most people who are new to music production may, you know, assign MIDI to, is like, oh, that's my keys. MIDI is just a communication protocol that allows us to really give a ton of data to a ton of different things. So it's not just keys, you know, this could also be your bass guitar, it could be your synthesizer, it could be your drum set, it could be the commands you use to change a patch on your preset on your Toolmaster Pro or fill in any other number of things. MIDI is also a protocol that can be used for controlling a light show if you're trying to get all this situated. But I will say for most of my clients, MIDI is keyboard, bass / synthesizer, and drums. Now our last option we have is return track. Your patch will by default come with the return track of a delay and reverb. Basically, without getting too far into the weeds, there's this concept called busing. Okay, so let me just explain real quick, bear with me while I kind of get a little nerdy on you. Okay, so say I have an audio track. In my audio track, I know that this needs compression, reverb, and delay. But I have 15 audio tracks that are going to need very similar things. but I can group these, say like there's 4 guitars, there's a bass, and when I say 4 guitars, I mean, you know, we're double tracking, so we've got a little bit of width. So you can think of it in a traditional band, that would be 2 guitar parts. I can, if I were to put a compressor on each one of those things, that's going to continuously eat up my computer processing power, my CPU, and you'll be able to see up here, it'll tell you how much of your CPU you're actually using. If I want to maximize my CPU power and make sure that I'm not overwhelming it, I can create what's called a return track. With a return track, I can say, hey, I want to send, let me create an audio track. I can say, hey, I want to send, you know, minus 22 decibels into my reverb, and I can make sure everybody is using the same reverb. That's going to prevent us from having phasing issues, and it's going to control our processing power. Same thing with delay, you know, and whenever you're looking at these tracks, that's what these 2 icons over here showcase. These are our return tracks, so our reverb and our delay. Basically, you're going to control how much of the audio that you see here goes into whatever you have down here. By default, again, reverb and delay are associated with it, and you can see these are, if you click on them, you can actually see what is included with this. This is the default stuff. If you are new to production, you probably don't have a lot of plugins, and that's okay. Ableton really gives you a lot out of the box. Same with our delay here. Now, let me show you the reason why I really recommend most people get Ableton. So I'm going to load in my Toolmaster Pro, and just to backtrack real quick, the shortcut I use to get to that menu where I control what's coming in at Ableton and where Ableton is sending audio, that command is Command, comma. So this is going to open up our settings. I see Toolmaster Pro, etc. Now, again, I have a 2022 MacBook Pro with an M1 chip, 16 gigabytes of RAM. Pretty good machine. But you can see already I have, you know, 7.6 milliseconds of, and I'll just zero this out. I have 11.6 milliseconds of delay, of latency. That is really going to be an issue when you get into recording. I tell my clients that we should really try to get below 5 milliseconds of latency. I find that if I can get below 5 milliseconds, I will not record with latency. So, you know, what is latency? Why is that a killer? If you've ever tried to get into recording and you notice like, wow, I'm playing in time, but when I go back and listen to it, it is way out of time. This is completely different from what I've written. That's because of latency. So one of the things that I love about Ableton is it's very lightweight and it's easy to control your level of latency. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this driver error compensation and I'm going to pull it down until I get perfect. Minus 12 milliseconds of error compensation gets my overall latency to 4.9 milliseconds. Again, anything below 5 milliseconds, you're really not going to have an issue at latency. So this is perfect for my use case. The other thing we can do in here is we can change our themes and colors. So maybe you find this gray color uninspiring. You can like follow your system, so all of a sudden you can see my system is in dark mode. But really one of my favorite colors to work in is this Angst Robot. Purple, man. It's just the way. Alright, so with that out the way, you can see now this is picking up my microphone, and these are directly associated with your Toolmaster Pro. So Toolmaster Pro channels 1 and 2, these are the audio channels that are coming out exactly on my Toolmaster Pro, and I'm just using my classical set preset. Channel 3 is going to be your dry signal for your Toolmaster Pro, so you can see channel 4 is also the dry signal just for my microphone, and I am using a NT1 condenser microphone, and I'm just running phantom power, so that way everything is controlled in the Toolmaster Pro and coming directly into Ableton. Another thing I want to show you that's really important for recording before I continue with the overview, I'm going to show you another one of my favorite shortcuts. If you hit Command K, as in kilo, this is going to highlight everything that's clickable. So anything you see right here, you can click it and assign a shortcut. So my favorite shortcut that I add is I click on the record button and I hit R for Romeo. So now when I hit R, it's going to record for me. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop this because we're not really recording right now. If I do want to record a track, make sure that you're clicking this record button over here. So I talked about this on my live stream the other day, but the way that I typically operate is I will have 2 tracks recording at the same time. You can do this by holding command and clicking both, as long as they're not the same channel. So in this setup right now, if you have the ToneMaster Pro, that means channel 1 is going to be recording anything that is coming out of the ToneMaster Pro that you'd be sending to like front of house. And then channel 3 and channel 4 is going to be guitar dry signal and then vocal dry signal. So this is a typical setup for me. Most important thing to do though, label your tracks. You can see Command R is for renaming. So this is the probably just do TMP tone, and then here DI for direct in. This is important. I usually do double tracking when I'm doing guitars, and sometimes even quad tracking depending on what I'm doing. And the times I'll do quad tracking or triple tracking is when I'm working with acoustic guitars. I like to record with a bunch of different microphones, as well as my direct input and my ToneMaster Pro preset. May sound like a little overkill if you're just now getting new into production, but man, the more layers I can blend into one signal for that acoustic guitar, the better I am to really capture the sound that I hear in the room. So that's just like one little freebie trick for you. All right, so to continue our overview, if I click on a track, anything that's on that track is going to come into this bottom section. On your left hand side, this is where your entire library of sounds will be. So if you purchase any any plugins or any external sources, VSTs, which stands for Virtual Studio Technology, it'll show up over here. Also, depending on which suite of Ableton you bought, those inclusions of sound will be over here. Ableton is intelligent enough to scan your computer and find all of your VSTs and all of your plugins. But what I really recommend you do is get an external solid state drive. Mine is NVMe 3.0, I think. And I have a 4 terabyte drive that I put all my plugins on. And the reason why you really want to get something solid state is because latency. You need something with really, really fast read and write speeds. So it's not a big deal to unload that plugin onto your external drive. And also, solid state drives, in my experience, are way more reliable than HDDs or, you know, your typical hard drive with a spinning disk. So if you bought some plugins, you'll see them over on the left-hand side. You click plugins and you can see these are all of my plugins that I own. So I'll just kind of give you an example of how you actually use your plugins. I'm a big fan of Easy Drummer and Easy Keys, as well as Lo-Fi Panda, which is by Clark Audio. Most of my drum tones are either Easy Drummer or Clark Audio, depending on if I'm doing lo-fi or like a metal mix. And then if I'm doing any type of orchestration, I use East-West exclusively. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab Easy Drummer and I'm going to drag it onto the MIDI track, and that's going to open up now my drums. I think I'm clipping there, but at least you get the idea. So that'll be how you load in your plugins. Now, say that you're working on or you're working with a plugin that isn't an instrument and needs to be put onto an actual audio track. So I'm going to type in 1176. And let's say that this is the compressor I want to use on my ToneMaster Pro guitar tone. If I drag and drop that onto an audio track, you'll see we'll struggle to load it. And then boom, there it is. And you can also see if I highlight this track, it's now here. One other thing, let's say that we're going to be doing some programming for our keyboards. All right, so I'm going to create a MIDI track, name it. We're going to call this pound. And then keys. If you do that pound sign, it'll just number all of your tracks for you. So, and you don't, it's dynamic. So you won't have to update it manually. That's all that's doing if you're curious. But what I'm going to do for my keys is I'm going to grab Clark Audio's Lo-Fi Panda. Shout out to them. They are awesome. All right, and let's just load one up. It doesn't really matter because I'm not going to really be programming this. So we're just going to click Brooklyn Upright. Okay, so right now, no audio will come out. If I had my MIDI controller set up, I could play it and I would be able to hear it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend like we're going to write an 8-bar loop. Typically, I will write in either 4 or 8-bar phrases and layer them together and slowly build out the track. And there's more than just that. Again, if you are new to this, I don't want you to get lost in trying to create something that's like so intricate and trying to become like your peak song of creativity. That's not the goal here. The goal is to get our repetitions in. Don't worry about writing your best work until you've written 100 songs. And really try to fall in love with this process of learning this stuff, because the payout is tremendous. I would just say, like, a lot of the times when I'm working with new clients and they've never done this stuff, they think that their first song is going to be the song that puts them on the map. Can that happen? Absolutely. I would just say, don't put that pressure on yourself. Just fall in love with the process and learning this stuff, you know, because the basics I'm showing you right here will go a long way to get you started. So once we have our measures highlighted, I want you to right click and I want you to hit insert MIDI clip. The shortcut for that is Shift Command M. You can see that here. Now, this is going to open up our MIDI screen, all right? And let me just minimize some stuff so it's not so confusing. So you can see we still have all of our tracks. I can even squish these down so they're not in the way if this makes more sense for you. And you can see that the MIDI tracks are here. Now, let's say that I know that I'm going to be in the key of C major, but I really want to write modally. I've been hearing a lot about modes, and I just want to see what this is all about. So if we're in the key of C major, then that means if I want to write in, let's say, Dorian, I will write in D Dorian, because Dorian is C's relative, or that's the second of C major. So here's the cool thing. We hit D, and then we type in Dorian. Now, the thing we can do is we can hit scale, and now I have all of my notes inside of D Dorian. You notice right now I'm clicking and we're not hearing anything. Once you have this highlighted, the next thing you need to do is click this icon, this headphone icon. Now you'll be able to hear. And that is clipping because I don't have my audio. My audio right now is set up from a microphone, not for this. But hopefully, you know, if that is the thing and you keep clipping, like if I pull down my gain, which is over here to the right of keys, now I shouldn't clip. And this is Dorian. So look, it's going to show you. Here's what Dorian sounds like. Alright, let me show you one more thing, and then I think this will probably wrap it up for our beginner guide. So one thing I want you to do is, you can't see it on my screen because I'm recording, but if you go to File in your top left hand, and then if you go to Export Audio/Video, or you can use the shortcut Shift Command R. This is how we export out our audio. This is a question I get with a lot of the clients I work with, of like, whenever we're first getting started, I got things written, how do I get it out? Because you don't want to send someone your Ableton session. They may not have all the same plugins as you. And sometimes it's just, I find that Ableton is not as fluid in this domain as, say, Logic or Pro Tools. Like, Pro Tools is really king if you're just sending sessions back and forth. I despise Pro Tools. So here's what we're doing. All right, so the render track main, this may confuse some at first. You can isolate the tracks that you want to send out, but main is your main final channel. So if you want to export out your song as it's written, use main. Your start length, this is where, you know, some people, they will have 4 to 8 bars of space. So if you're playing to a click track, you can get used to the tempo and then you can count yourself in. So you'll want to change wherever the beginning of the song is. If I'm composing, most of the time it's starting on 1, because even when I play live, I don't play with a click track. I just don't. I'll just give myself space in my composition before I come in, if that makes sense. And then you change your render length. Really, the shortcut here is to highlight all of your songs by using Command A, and then get to the screen with the Command Shift R. And then it'll automatically render this, but you can say, like, say you're sending this over to your friend and you just want them to hear the chorus, and the chorus is only 16 bars starting on measure 32. You would do that here. For your sample rate, the higher the sample rate, the higher the fidelity is, but do not think that 192,000 hertz is going to sound better than 4,800 hertz. 4,800 kilohertz or 48 kilohertz or 4,800 hertz. That is like industry standard. That is the quality you need to be sending out to like DistroKid. 44.1 can also be if you're doing like sync licensing and they say, hey, we need 44.100. You'll know if you're working for someone if that's what they need, but keep stock at 4,800. If you're sending this for someone else to listen to, give them a .wav file. .wav files just have higher fidelity. Like if you're a client of mine and you want me to hear what you're doing, send me your WAV file. But you know, this is where you can change and you can do whatever you're trying to do. This is Apple encryption, you know, and then you can do MP3 encoding if you want, or if you're doing a video there, you know, you can change all your settings there, and then you just hit export. It'll ask you where you want to export it to. You select that, and then boom, you're done. For that is all we're going to talk about with Ableton. All right, so hopefully that at least gets you inspired, and you know, from this video, you know which version of Ableton you should shoot for, and you at least got some overview of how do I actually get started in Ableton. Biggest thing to note is, you know, hitting that command comma and making sure everything's talking, no matter if you're using a Scarlett interface, Toolmaster Pro, Axe Effects, etc, etc, etc. That's where you want to set up your audio input and output, and then the rest is just knowing the difference between MIDI files, audio files, and how to export things. There's obviously a ton that we have not covered that I've literally gotten a 4-year degree in music production to learn how to do all this. So I would just say if you're feeling a little overwhelmed about getting your feet wet in music production, just know that's a normal reaction, because just like anything in life that's complicated, it's a lot to take on at once. If you're watching these YouTube videos, that's telling me that your headspace is already in the right space. If you're interested in saving time with one-on-one coaching and really having someone hold you accountable, but also giving you the information you actually need so you can stay off of these YouTube videos and stay inside your DAW, reach out to me. My tag on Instagram is Damien Andy, and my business tag is the Guitar Artistry Program. I work with clients over 12 weeks. We're at the end of a 12-week period. You go from knowing absolutely nothing to knowing which tools you actually need for your studio to accomplish the music you're trying to write. And at the end of our time together, you will have at a minimum one fully finished track with a system in place and an operating studio where you can really do whatever you want to do after that. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, I really encourage you to reach out to me. But in the meantime, I want you to hear from one of my clients, Kai Lotus. Kai came to me with experience of working in large studios with really successful producers in the reggae space. However, Kai knew what it was like to come in with a song on a guitar and sing it. After that though, he had no idea how everything else came to be. Yet now we've been working together for about 4 weeks, and he's getting really close to finishing up his first song at the time of this recording. So listen to Kai. This is what he says about the Guitar Artistry Program.
Hello, my name is Kai, and I want to share a little bit about why I decided to work with Damien in the Guitar Artistry Program. So I've been writing songs and performing for many years now, but I've never dove deep into production. And that's always been something that's been holding me back in my career. When I finally decided I want to learn this, I was very overwhelmed by all the information out there. I didn't know where to start. So when I found Damien and I saw his program, I spoke with him. He seemed very passionate about what he's doing, and that was one of the first things that inspired me to work with him, was his motivation behind what he's doing. He really wants to help people. In hindsight, I realized that that's true. He's very passionate. I love that he caters to students' needs. So in the first week, he had a curriculum that he was suggesting me to follow. We spoke about my goals a little bit more and realized that maybe we should take a different direction. So he was quick on his feet, restructured the curriculum on a track that is more aligned with my goals. This type of personal catering to a student's needs is not something that you would find in schools. That's my favorite thing about working with Damien, is how specifically catered the program is. And I would recommend this program to anybody from somebody just starting out that maybe is just picking up a guitar and wants to learn production, all the way to somebody who maybe is very experienced in the guitar and songwriting but never took the time to learn production. It's never too late or too early to learn production. I would highly recommend working with Damien.
And I hope that this inspired you. I'm going to continue out a series. I'm going to be doing 2 series in parallel. This will be the Ableton series, and I'm also going to start doing the same thing with Logic Pro. Honest to God, I use both. I work with clients who predominantly use Logic Pro and clients who use predominantly Ableton. Really watch both of these videos and see which one makes the most amount of sense to you, and then just stop trying to make a decision and just pull the trigger on one, because the canvas isn't what's important. What's really important is you, the artist. So find the one that looks the prettiest to you. I know that may sound really superficial, but if it inspires you to sit down and write music, that's the one that's for you. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for checking out this video. If you want to see more compositional tips and learn a little bit more about my process as a composer and artist, check out the videos above that are linked above.